It doesn't matter who you are or what you believe. We all feel it, right? That little pull towards anger, towards seeing other people as the enemy. It's something we all experience.
So why is that? I mean, why does the world just feel so divided? And not just the world, but even inside our own hearts sometimes. Well, the source material we're digging into today has a really surprising answer. So let's jump right in. And this answer comes from a really unique place. It's a creative exploration that imagines a conversation between five of the greatest spiritual leaders in history: Jesus, Buddha, Moses, Muhammad, and Reverend Sun Myung Moon. And get this, their goal wasn't to debate religion. It was to shed light on a struggle that affects every single one of us.
So, what is that struggle exactly? Well, the source puts it in a really powerful way. It says, the biggest, most important battle for humanity, it isn't fought with armies or in politics. Nope. The real war is fought right here, inside each of our hearts. And that really brings us to the central idea of this whole dialogue. See, division, it's not just some random, unfortunate thing that happens. According to these spiritual leaders, it's actually a deliberate, calculated strategy, a plan, orchestrated by some kind of antagonistic force, specifically to keep us all weak and fighting amongst ourselves. Okay, so how do they describe this force? This is where it gets really interesting. It's not just one thing. On the one hand, they talk about it like a real intelligent being out there. But on the other hand, they also describe it as an influence, like a pattern of thinking, a way of being that can take root right inside of us. So it's both an outside force and an inside job. And this quote from Reverend Moon just nails that idea perfectly. The strategy is at its most powerful when we don't even know what's happening, when we start to think all this conflict and division is just normal, just the way things are. Buddha's perspective on this is fascinating. He called this force Mara and said it doesn't need a body or anything like that. It gets its power from our own minds, from our confusion, our fears, our desires. Basically, when our minds are all clouded up, we're basically rolling out the welcome mat for it. And Muhammad's take really shows you how subtle this whole strategy is. He explains that it's not about some big, dramatic force pushing you to do bad things. No, it's way quieter. It's a nudge, a little whisper of doubt, a tiny spark of suspicion. It just kind of fans the flames of our emotions and then steps back into the shadows. So here's the bottom line. The main goal of this whole strategy: isolate us, cut us off from each other, and cut us off from our own spiritual center. Because once a heart is all alone, it's super vulnerable to things like fear and pride. And at that point, this force doesn't even have to do anything. It just sits back and watches us fight each other. Okay, so how does this actually show up in the real world? The dialogue gets really specific here, pointing out the areas where this strategy does the absolute most damage, the wounds that cut deeper than any others. And this is maybe the most powerful claim in the entire dialogue. All these great spiritual leaders agree on this one thing: racial division is uniquely destructive. Reverend Moon even calls it the masterpiece of the whole strategy. Why? Because it attacks the one dream that could unite us all, the dream of humanity becoming one single family. And what's so fascinating is how each leader sees this wound from a slightly different angle, but they all see how devastating it is. For Moses, it's a lie that tarnishes the very image of God in other people. For Buddha, it's something that comes from ignorance, from us clinging to these made-up identities. Muhammad sees it as a kind of toxic arrogance that gets passed down from parent to child. And for Reverend Moon, it's a direct shot to God's heart, like a parent watching their own children tear each other apart. And all of this brings us right back to that central idea. Yeah, we see these wounds out there in society, but the source is crystal clear. The real war, the one that actually matters, is won or lost on the battlefield inside our own minds and hearts. The dialogue has a name for this: inner deception. Think of it like this: your heart is the command center. And if this antagonistic force can get in there and start messing with your thoughts and emotions, it can cut you off from who you really are, spiritually. It can basically control you from the inside out. And according to these leaders, this whole process happens in stages. It all starts with just a whisper, a little lie about your own worth, or a tiny doubt about someone else. Then it starts to entangle you, using your own ego and desires to trap you. Next thing you know, you're blind, confused, pointing fingers, and you can't even see the truth anymore. And finally, the heart is conquered. It becomes divided against itself and your integrity just breaks. But here's the good news. The dialogue doesn't just leave us there in the dark. After laying out the problem so clearly, it pivots to the solution. It shares the collective wisdom on how we can actually fight back and overcome this whole strategy of division. So what's the ultimate antidote? Well, they say it all comes down to a huge shift in how we see things. It's about recognizing that, at our core, we were all meant to be one single family. The moment we start seeing every single person as a brother or a sister, the entire foundation for division just starts to fall apart. And this isn't just some lofty, abstract idea. It's grounded in really simple daily actions. Things like, just being aware of your own inner state, choosing to act with integrity, remembering that divine spark in small ways throughout your day, making a conscious choice to live for other people. And this one's huge, practicing forgiveness, even when it's tough, because that's what breaks the whole cycle. See, beating this thing isn't some big one-time event. It's a daily practice. So that brings us right back to where we started, to that big question. In a world that feels like it's literally designed to pull us apart, how on earth do we actually overcome it? And the final powerful takeaway from this whole exploration is this. The answer isn't to go out and fight the darkness head on. A lot of times that just creates even more conflict. The real path to victory is to outgrow it, to cultivate so much love, so much awareness, so much unity inside yourself that those little whispers of division, they just have nowhere to land.